All right, guys. So today I'm going to talk about one of the biggest mistakes that I see a lot of business owners that I work with make right now, especially in the high ticket sales space. So if you're selling a high ticket product of any format online, then this video applies to you most likely. And that's that you. I think a lot of owners right now are looking at their funnel in a traditional method, which is funnel is all about show rates for the most part until you get like to the closing process, and that's probably how you're thinking about it. So you're thinking about, hey, what is my conversion rate at once they do an opt-in, at a scheduling, after the setting call, and how do I optimize for show rates? How do I optimize for how many people close? It's very analytical. What we really want to think about is the funnel as an extension of your brand, right? Because uh, anyone selling a high ticket offer, obviously there's a lot of key things that somebody needs to give you $15,000 never met you in their life online. And one of the pillars is trust. And the best high ticket funnels right now are maximizing their ability to build trust across the entire funnel, on top of just thinking about conversion rates, reminders, all that kind of stuff. And we're going to talk about how you can kind of revamp your funnel so that you are maximizing trust as well. And again, that's what the best funnels right now are doing. So let's brush over some of the main things. I won't go too in depth. Maybe that's for a later, longer video. But let's talk about it. So I want you to think of this as really a framework shift in terms of how you think about your funnel, right? So again, it's not just about show rates. It's about thinking about every stage that you have, that you take your client through in your funnel, as an opportunity for you to either win or lose trust. And ideally, you're winning trust at every stage, right? So I've created a nice little graph here. But if you think of a traditional funnel, again, you have stages, right? Yours is going to look a little different from this, but generally speaking. And you start off with very little trust, and hopefully, if you're doing it the right way, you're building trust naturally as you move them down your funnel, which makes it a lot easier for you to ask for their business at the end. That's how you have to think about it, on top of just making sure that they show up to the next stage. So how do we do that? There's a couple key concepts. We'll go over each stage, but as a general rule of thumb, you want to add a lot of value that pertains to where they're at in your funnel. And also, you want to make your funnel feel real. And what do I mean by that? Let's just put it this way. I've worked with a lot of owners right now, and 90% of the time when I first start working in their funnel, literally, like, I could predict what it looks like because it's all the same. Everyone's doing the same thing. A funnel, reminders, opt-ins, a setting call, a qualification call, and then a one call close type situation. If you take them through the same, remember, and they're probably looking at 5 or 6 different offers that are selling the exact same thing. If you're just different and you're a bit more authentic, even slightly, you immediately stand out, and it makes them think that, hey, there's something's different. This feels real. So we're going to use those two concepts and really analyze very quickly how you might be able to implement things that will allow you to build trust in your funnel. So back to the funnel. This is a pretty typical funnel that a lot of our companies will probably use. So we have many different types, right? We have an Instagram DM for this client. You can have webinar leads, you can have referrals, partnerships. Most of you are running some sort of cold outbound, and then obviously also paid advertisements. I'm just going to use this as an example, but just know that you really want to be intentful about every single funnel that you have and develop a framework like this to maximize trust across each unique funnel. So in this example, Facebook ads, right? So typical funnel for Facebook ads, you have an opt-in, they're going to give you their information, and then you're going to have an automation to schedule a call. Not too much you can do here, but already we want to set a foundation, right? We don't want to overload them with resources at this stage, obviously, so that they can't make a decision at this point to not talk to someone, because you want that human connection. So you definitely don't want to give them all the eggs and tell them exactly what you do yet. But you might want to start sending them a few things that differentiate you and help build trust slowly, right? That could be every funnel again is different. Like if you know you have a weakness in terms of reviews and you don't have much of a public presence, maybe sending them a few direct links to some articles that you have or a testimonial video. That's up to you. Not too much you can do here. Really, the difference becomes right at the setter call. And let me explain what I mean by that. A lot of owners might think of this setting call as just more of a, how do we get this person to show up to the next call at a higher clip? How do we make sure that they're engaged, and how do we disqualify people who are broke or not qualified and not waste my closer's time? This is actually this is where you can actually build a ton of trust compared to other funnels, right? Let me give you an example. A traditional setter might ask things like, hey, what's your budget? Can you afford 10K? What do you want to take out of this next meeting? All these things. Immediately think about how they can add more value and position your company in a way that makes them think, wow, these guys are real. Like, these guys can actually help me. They seem like they know their shit and I can trust them, right? So a question that you might have your sellers start asking or start taking a conversation to is like, hey, what's your evaluation process, right? How do you want to evaluate things like high ticket investments or lifestyle coaching programs? What are the things that you care about so that we can map to it, right? So your setter is immediately demonstrating something different from other setters, that this person knows his shit. He's trying to qualify something beyond just their budget. And maybe, it's signifying that your company really has a process that is different and is more helpful to the client because you're trying to understand how he likes to do evaluations. And then the next call will be a bit more tailored to that person's style of evaluating. That's one example, and it gets them thinking. And I guarantee you a question like that, no other setter is asking that. What's even the point of that setter asking that, right? Like, if you're only paying the setter to show up, why would he ask that question, right? If you're only paying the setter for that person to show up on the next call, he might not even, like, they're not even be an incentive for him to ask that question. But doing this deliberately, I guarantee you will immediately start upping your trust meter, right? There's a ton of examples like that, but you want to think about your unique funnel, how you can differentiate at this stage in terms of what your setter can set up as a foundation and tell your client. All right, next thing, you go on demo 1, right? Again, think about what you can do even before they show up for the first demo in terms of building trust. Even small things, right? Like we had a client that implemented call recordings, and after the setter call, they would actually send the client portions of the recording that basically just snipped out what they said and focus on what the setter said, so that they could review a lot of the information that was covered on the call, for example. And they might not even listen to that call ever, but the fact that you did that they're going to be like, oh shit, there's something different here. They're trying to help me. They have a process here. They're trying to save time, but be helpful. Like, it could signify a lot of things, but ultimately, we don't even care if they listen to that call. It's gonna help you get lower in the trust meter. And as long as you're doing something better than the competition, even 1%, it makes an immediate impact, right? So think about it. Every funnel is different, but you might do something like send them recordings, send them more relevant articles, have them do things like homework so that they could prepare and you can have a mutual action plan on your next call. Maybe send your closer's profile to them beforehand. Same thing on your first demo, right? A lot of people do something like making this a one call close scenario every single time, right? Think about where they're at in the trust meter. You can get hints of it, right, during your first demo, but gauge where they're at, and it might maybe be more flexible and have an SOP where your closer, depending on where they're at in terms of trust, because sometimes it's just a time thing, where deliberately they'll schedule more calls with them and extend this into multiple stages. A good example of this is this. If you know that you've maximized trust at every stage, and you know for a fact that you've done a good job here in your funnel, and they come to demo one still skeptical, then you know that they're also skeptical on the 5 other offers that they're looking at, right? And the way that you build trust here is, again, you act differently. If they're skeptical on demo one of every other call that they're on, you be the different guy, and you might do something like, okay, you should take your time and not make a decision today. In fact, I think because you're looking at 5 different offers, you should really think about this. You don't have to buy today. Why don't you reevaluate how you want to make your decision, and I'll give you all the information you need on more calls. Right? Take your time. Let's schedule another call for Wednesday where we'll deep dive on this aspect. You wanted to see our financials. I guarantee you nobody else is doing that because they're not thinking about the trust meter in terms of the whole funnel. They're only thinking about what you told them to do on that call, which is try to close them by all means. So we can get into more tactics of this in terms of what we can actually do to transform every single section, but every funnel is different, right? This is just one example of a funnel that we helped in the past, and your funnel is unique. Believe that. But again, as long as you're thinking in this framework, I promise you there are things that will pop up that you'll always think in that gauge. It's not just about, hey, making sure this guy shows up. What am I doing that's actually helping build trust with my brand and familiarity? And as long as you're doing that, man, again, the analogy I always say is, if by the end of this funnel, you've maximized the trust meter and they trust you, you could say anything to them at all and they'll believe it. So why wouldn't they buy it? That really has to be your focus. This is generally how successful funnels are built, and it makes every stage and all of your employees' jobs easier at every stage if there is a backbone of trust. But again, that was a very high level example, and things are always changing in terms of funnels, because the idea is, as things and trends change, if you're not always updating it, you're not being unique, and that hurts your authenticity. So if you want to have a free audit, maybe we look into your funnel and we talk a bit more in depth about what exactly you might be able to implement at each stage. Happy to get on a call. Just book in the link below or DM me directly and we can chat further and see if there's any further tips I can give you or I can learn from you. Excited to chat soon.